Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the Wednesday, March 13th meeting of the Fire Station Building Committee to order at 6:30. So thank you all for being here this evening. We have some new faces at the table, so I'd just like to take a moment, if we could, to just go around and reintroduce ourselves and introduce ourselves to the group. And I can start. I'm Lorraine Carboni. I'm Select Board representative to this committee. And is it on?
Hi, I'm Mike O'Brien. I'm the Fire Chief, Lakeville.
Kate Shing, Fire Committee.
Peter Conroy, Fire Committee.
I'm Nate Dowling, Building Commissioner.
Bob Nunes, Interim Town Administrator.
Mike McCullough, Fire Committee.
Richard Pomeroy, Pomeroy Associates.
Alex Murphy, Pomeroy Associates.
Mark Secosio, Secosio and Associates Architects.
Kyle Robinson, Secosio and Associates Architects.
Excellent. Well, thank you for entertaining me with that. I know the people in our audience and at home will be interested to know who is actually here this evening. So first item on our agenda this evening, review the fire station space needs and concept floor plan as proposed by Secosio and Associates. So our last meeting was back in December, and I feel like I haven't seen, this family in quite some time. But from that meeting, we were breaking off into a smaller work group with the fire chief to determine, some of the needs that were, had come about through the discussions to put down as a, kind of a baseline plan. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And I'd like to turn it over to Mark if I can.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna go over, so we should have a three-pronged solution or discussion tonight. The site options, so there's been three sites that we've looked at. We've come up with, we still, although it looks more finished than it is, but it's a fairly well-developed floor plan, conceptual plan. So that was a result of the programming sessions that we had as a result of the subcommittee meetings that we all had together. And then some pictures and then questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Kyle because...
If I may, Madam
Sure.
Chair. So just to give you the committee an idea of the process, to get to the point where the material is being presented the evening, there's been project programming that's been completed. And the programming consists of a review of the department, how it operates, its particular needs within the community, the staffing, the proposed staffing, and long-term growth needs. And that programming is conducted directly with the department. The project architect and his team analyze the department, make recommendations from what they see across in the area, as well as what the department is looking for their staffing and growth projections. From that, a conceptual plan gets developed that gives us the overall massing of the facility to understand kind of what we're going to be looking for as far as space requirements and circulation. And that massing takes into consideration adjacencies, what rooms work best. Adjacencies mean which rooms work best adjacent to other rooms, and thinking about response time within the facility itself, because we always consider response time, people think of response time outside of the facility, but we think of it also about inside the facility. How quickly and what's the best access for the firefighter or staff to get to the apparatus bay, to get the vehicles moving. So all of that is looked at during the planning, and there's been several meetings to review that, first with the programming, then the overall massing, and then the adjacencies, and then the combination of all those components together to come up with a floor plan. And then we've gone through some refinements of that. Where we'd like to move this over here or change this around. This doesn't need to be as big. This need to be larger to come up with what we have today. So there's a decent amount of work that goes into getting to this point right now. And there's been a lot of back and forth, quite frankly, during that process. And we're here tonight to present you with that.
Yeah, if you remember, we passed out that draft programming book at the December meeting. And then we've since refined that. We can provide a copy. I actually thought we had already given that, but I don't think we have it, so I was just looking. So we can provide that programming book to the full committee, so you have the basis of what we're gonna talk about tonight.
Yeah, we're not presenting the kind of detail of that. That's a very detailed kind of space needs, but we'll present it so you guys can look through it. But this is kind of the outcome of that, as Rick said. So what you're seeing is what came out of that book, and we can provide the backup. So, you know, if there are questions, you can see how we got to some of these sizes, as we go through.
I think as we're going through this, what's important to realize is what the growth potential is within the facility as well, because you not only want to design for today, but you want to design for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll start. So we wanted to start today really looking at the sites. So this is a map that you really can't see the circle on. This is a one mile radius from we took it from the main intersection in town. Just kind of identifying it. And hold on, let me get my laser point. There we go. So the circle, you can identify it, kind of wraps around here right under the site. So our 3 sites, so everyone's aware, this is the police stations right here. So we have the site on Precinct Street, there's one on Bedford Street, and then one just inside Ted Williams Camp. So those are the 3 sites. So we're calling them A, B, C as we go through. You can pick up kind of the half-mile radius from this intersection. It cuts right next to that site, the precinct site, and the other 2 sites are within a half mile of the main intersection. And this is through the conversations, I think, that led to these sites, and since proximity to this intersection is very important to the fire department, as that is their way to get to the kind of 4 quadrants of the city. So site A, so this is a precinct site. So Precinct Street is, lost my cursor, over here.
Is that
That's Bedford
Bedford Street?
It is.
Yeah.
That's precinct.
Nope.
Nope.
There's precinct.
That's precinct. That's better. I thought we had turned it 90 degrees. That looks better. So here's Precinct Street. That's the drive into the Council on Aging. So this site, there's enough property for this site. There are some concerns on the site in general, which we'll get to when we get to the matrix. Main access would be directly onto Precinct Street with secondary access off the drive. So that would include staff and apparatus. So the design we've been talking about it's a drive-through, but essentially you have access for apparatus to leave the front or the back of the department. And when we get to the plan, we can explain that a little more. But there would be apparatus having to return or leave out of the Council on the Aging site. That is from a programmatic standpoint, that is a big concern on this site. Site B, the Ted Williams campsite. So this is the internal one a little bit. There's more than enough land to do this on this site. The main kind of programmatic concern on here is all traffic would have to come onto Ted Williams Camp Drive. Apparatus and staff, there'd be only one means of egress or access and egress out of the department. This requires a lot more turning radius maneuverability on the site, paved area to pull off so that, as there is no circulation. So they would have to be able to have apparatus come in the back, be able to turn around, get in or get out.
Can you just go back to that? On the left, I'm trying to visualize this.
This is the skate park.
Okay. Okay, now I'm with you. Thank you.
So
I'm trying to
right
figure
over-
out buildings.
Yep.
Like, what is that
It
building?
does look like a building. Right across the street here is the parking lot, which is right behind us.
Yes, okay.
So
Yeah, thank you.
So you're saying this would require a bigger footprint to hit the radiuses?
there would be
Required
more,
for turns?
there would be more pavement involved to make sure that you can get all your apparatus in and out of the different areas.
How much land does this place need? Excuse me. What's the footprint size? Acres, 2 acres, 3 acres, 1 acre?
Do we, Spencer, do you?
You're looking at roughly an acre per site, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. It's really site dependent, grading dependent. It varies by hydrologic standards, how much space we need for stormwater, how much space we need for septic. It can vary, so in the conceptual stage, I would say roughly an acre.
If I
Just
can,
introduce yourself, if you don't mind.
Spencer Lynn's Civil Site Design Engineer with Park Corporation.
He's a consultant to our company.
thank you. Thanks for joining us. If we can just, maybe make notes of questions so that we can at least just try to, get through the presentation. And I'll certainly take comment from the, from the folks in the audience too.
So the third site, the Bedford Street site, it's positioned on the corner, directly across. So this is the police station right here, the park, I guess just below there. They would have direct access to Bedford Street. Secondary access is by Ted Williams Drive. This would be the main staff access. We're also proposing here, you have the opportunity to come around the back for apparatus. So any apparatus that comes out the back can turn and get right onto Bedford Street and doesn't have to interact with park traffic. So this is the most visible of the three sites from a access standpoint to get to those, your kind of two main roads and the main intersection in town. So I have, leave me one for us.
Take one and pass.
So this is what we're showing on the screen, so it's gonna be a little easier to see yourself. So this is a matrix that kind of, we compared the sites under different categories, rated them, and came with this, so we'll kind of go through this. So
Just address the flipping, so the A, B, and C is
Yes.
appropriately.
So site A is Precinct Street, site B is the internal Ted Williams campsite, and site C we're calling the Bedford Street site. So A and C were flipped on those first ones. So from a lot size, all three lots have more than enough land to do what is needed. We have no real concerns from a buildability standpoint in that sense. Taking site buildability into concern. So Precinct Street, we scored 4 out of 10. It is essentially a bowl. We can have Spencer elaborate a little bit on this, but there is some concerns about the buildability of the site, it being wet, and what it would take to actually get the site ready for a building.
Yeah, so Spencer Lynn's Park Corporation, the site grading, while not displayed on those plans, if you were to look at it from a LiDAR perspective, you basically have the center of the site is 5 foot down from both Precinct Street and the Council on Aging access road. So immediately you're sort of behind the 8 ball, needing to fill in this area, grade this area accordingly so that it works hydrologically. This creates a sort of much greater need for development costs as fill is expensive, material is expensive. So additionally, it's unclear right now that a wetland study has not been conducted, but because of the nature of it being a bowl, it could very well be classified as wetlands potentially. A further study would be needed for that. So if it was a wetlands, it would more or less become a non-starter, but this remains to be uncovered without a full former wetland study for it.
So those are the reasons why we scored it low. It's a much more challenging site than the others. While it's still capable of being built on, it requires really some more study to confirm that. All three sites, we have to deal with national heritage. So we kind of leveled that off. There's some benefits in that permitting to site A and site C opposed to site B, but the value of that is kind of level on all three. If we move to site B, the internal Ted Williams campsite, we rated that an 8. It's a pretty good site. The grading isn't bad, but it needs a little bit of fill. It needs a little bit of work, a little more work than the other sites. So we rated that an 8. there's a little more cost involved in that site just from the general kind of way the grading out there goes. And Bedford.
I might add, if,
Yep.
there's more surface area that's being created with Site B, the Ted Williams Camp, because of its accessibility. So in other words, we have more paved area, which has an impact not only on cost, but an impact on storm drainage
Storm drainage.
of
So
that area.
we're touching a lot more, we'll end up touching a lot more area generally in that site.
Should be noted that it's very flat as well, so grading changes, both fill and cut, need to be made at a greater quantity than the site that's closest to Bedford Street, which has a nice gradual grade downward.
So then looking at Site C on Bedford Street, again, the size appropriate, the permitting is essentially the same all the way through. But it does really perform better from a site enhancement there's less fill, there's less cutting. It provides access to the main roads almost at grade without a lot of additional work in it. So the next line here is site and building acquisition, potential demo. Everybody scored the same. They're all essentially equal on that standpoint. Response time. So the precinct site got a 5 out of 10, mainly because I know it's one of the main roads in town, but it's truly a secondary road compared to Bedford Street. There's a lot of residential houses around it. Discussing it with the chief, there's a belief that it is a more difficult road to get in and out of for apparatus during calls than Bedford Street. It's also slightly farther away from the main intersection of town and from where the majority of calls in the town that they go to are. So the Ted Williams campsite got a 7. So now we're in a better position for accessing calls. The main downfall here is that you're accessing it off of secondary camp road. Traffic on that road could vary from the way it is today, where it's not a big deal, to completely packed and access is very limited. So Site C, we scored with a 10 because they have direct access to Bedford Street, and we can get them direct access to the front of the station from the rear of the station without accessing a secondary road. So access, no matter what apparatus they're pulling out with, would have direct access to Bedford Street. So utilities, Site A, we scored it 5 out of 8. There is some, as Spencer mentioned, this goes back to drainage and grading and how do we get utilities around and make the site work. Site B is a 6 out of 8. Again, there's some issues with that, with grading and getting everything on there, but it's less. And then Bedford Street, we scored as an 8. That is the easiest to do the utilities on. We know we have to extend utilities to both of the Ted Williams campsites, B and C, so those are kind of negate that fact. But the real kind of the bold nature of the precinct site is really what pulled that one down, as it will be more challenging to accomplish what we need to do.
Is it worthwhile discussing wastewater?
Yeah, if you want to touch on it briefly now.
Yeah, so there was a question that was brought up about septic setbacks as they relate to surface drinking water supply setbacks. Basically the entirety of this lot is located within a Zone B, which does not have performance standards as they relate to Title V, though that does not preclude the town of Lakeville from having their own performance standards for a Zone B. There is a Zone A that more or less follows the wetlands. That really only becomes a concern with the Bedford Street site, but this is more or less just a design concern because there's enough space on site to locate the septic outside of the Zone A. So in terms of wastewater across all 3 sites, the same implications are in place when it comes to siting a septic system.
So the next category was vehicular egress and ingress. Precinct Street is 4, basically it's a smaller road, a little farther away from town. The majority of their calls would come out, they'd have to drive down Precinct to the main intersection and then turn north on Bedford Street. So we scored that 4 out of 8. Ted Williams site, 6 out of 8, so that alleviates the travel through the intersection, but now we have the camp road that we're dealing with. And site C, since they have direct access to Bedford Street, that we gave that the full score. Land acquisition costs, everybody scored the same. Temporary facilities, there's none required, so this would be, do we have to, put trailers up, house staff, house apparatus, so there's no concerns with that. Location, because of the more residential nature of adjacent to the precinct site, we took a few points from that, where we scored the other 2 more. They're more in a little more commercial center of the town or neighbors. Wetlands. So this, we're showing the site A, the precinct site, as a 3. This is really an unknown. As Spencer already mentioned, more study would have to go into it, so we're not precluding it now because of wetlands. But by the nature of the site, we have concerns that it is acting as a wetlands and could be flagged as one. So we rated that as 3 out of 6. The site B, Camp Williams site, got 6 out of 6. There's no real wetlands concern with that one. We are out of the buffer zones. And then the Bedford Street site, we do impact the buffer zone a little bit. The kind of corner of the site would impact it. So we gave that a 5 out of 6. There's some permitting involved, but we don't see it as a big issue. It's well out of the flood zone. So it's not a flooding issue. It's just
If I may,
that buffer.
Kyle, that's the 100-foot buffer, correct?
Correct. So visibility. So this is really about, getting access, seeing the department. It kind of goes hand in hand with the department's ability to get out and on the street. So the precinct site is off kind of your main north-south corridor. So we lessened that a little bit. The Ted Williams campsite's inside the camp, so you really have limited visibility of the building from a town perspective, unless you're in the camp. And Bedford Street's on your busiest street, right out there and accessible.
So one of the things that people might not realize about visibility, the benefit of it, is we get walk-in medicals several times a week. People driving by, experiencing an emergency, they see the fire station and pull in. And we come to the police station a lot for these walk-in medicals. They come here looking for help. So having the fire department in a very visible location actually serves public safety. So that's another benefit to that.
It's somewhat, the amount of calls that you get that way here in this town, we do these all over Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut. You get a higher number of walk-ins. You almost become like a walk-in clinic. It's like another emergency room. It's disproportionate to other cities and towns that we work in.
I don't know
For
why.
what it's worth. We provided for it in the plan, and because of that, and we have done, triage rooms and others as well. But I was surprised to hear. I think you called it almost like ERA.
Yeah.
In other words, the first ER, and then you get the free ride to the real ER if you need it.
I think there's a lot of transient traffic through the town, and it counts for our high accident rate. People travel through the town to get to hospitals and things like that. So we get a lot of people that don't know the specifics of the town, and they see the fire department, they see the police department, they're in trouble, they pull in real quick, and it's like clockwork. Every couple of days we have one there.
I think it's a good idea. So I figure if I get in trouble now, I'm just going to go to the
Yeah, there you go.
say I might even come out here.
So, local traffic impact, so out of 5, we rated, site A and site B 4s, and Bedford Street 5, and that's really about, so site A was docked a point because there will be a lot of travel through the main intersection to get heading north. Site B was really about conflict with events inside the park. And, we gave Bedford Street with access to Bedford Street, full points. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't some impact or discussion about some signaling, but that kind of goes with all 3 sites, that there will be have some control to help access out onto Bedford Street and control traffic. So we were really looking at what is beyond that.
One of the things I thought was cool is your delineation between the different types of traffic devices. I didn't realize there was, a full-fledged traffic light, which is a high-end cost, and then there's a subdivision of that, a signaling device, which is kind of a lower priced option.
Oh, yeah.
So I was glad to hear that.
So the last tier is zoning setbacks, there's no concerns, they're all kind of equal in that. So if we take the sites as size and kind of general compatibility, they're all equal. When we get into kind of the finer details of it, the precinct site is a little more remote. It's not, super remote, but getting in and out through the main intersection of town and where most of the calls are located, it kind of knocks it a little bit. And there's the question of the wetlands. That's the big kind of question mark over there. And then the 2 sites over here, the Ted Williams campsite, the biggest, there's kind of 2 downfalls. One is there's 1 point of access. So it's just going to be more developed land. And 2 is the only access is off the Ted Williams Camp Drive, and the fluctuation of being able to maneuver on that road. And the Bedford Street site gives you kind of, they're on the north of the intersection. It gives them access to the majority of their calls without dealing with the main intersection of town, right on the road. There's still, again, signaling issues that we got to go through at all 3 sites. So that's where, those are kind of the summary of those. Site A scored a 72 out of 100, Site B 88, and Site C 99. That may not add up to 100. Does it?
No, we got 1 point reduced, so. I mean, the reality of it is what we're trying to show is a quantitative review of the sites. And be clear that short of wetlands on precinct, if there is no wetlands there, these are all buildable sites. We're not sitting here saying that you couldn't build on any one of these sites. It really is an order of magnitude of which one is the ideal site, a little less than ideal, and then a little less than ideal. We build buildings on sites A, and I'd be happy to build on A, compared to some other sites that we're just forced to because we don't have options. So, all things being equal, we try to make, we all worked on this, you can give one less number here, one less number there. At the end of the day, we're just trying to summarize, C is A, B is B, and A is C, in terms of one priority. So we just did it reverse just to screw it all up. But we have to have some fun in life. But but I do think it's a valuable tool. It was provided by the OPM. This is their tool. We've done similar, but it tries to judge in some less than arbitrary way of looking at the sites and why you would make a decision on using any one of the sites. But it's kind of, in some ways, it's like, which is your best kid in some level. But clearly we would say, based on this review, that we would want to look at C first. If that didn't work, go to B. And if that didn't work, go to A, in terms of expending time, energy, and resources.
Can I add one thing
Please.
to that? Kyle had mentioned on a number of occasions the majority of the calls, and I think we should make it clear that, is it 70% of your calls are north?
Yeah, roughly 70% are
Yeah.
north of that
So
intersection.
that the community needs to understand that when you're considering any site location.
I think the big thing for me is there's 2 types of costs in this project, mission direct and mission indirect. And if we minimize the indirect costs, you know, assuming there's a defined budget, it means that we can devote more of that budget towards Mission Direct, and Mission Direct is about saving lives. So when site selection, you know, there's a lot that goes into it, but cost is a factor, and if we can minimize the costs of developing a site or making the site ready for a building to get put on it, that should carry a lot of weight with us.
No, this is great because it helps me put things in a better perspective, because, you know, you have everything up in your head, but to actually see it on paper, it makes sense. You know, I mean, in my head, I thought Bedford Street might be the better location, but I didn't have any data to back that up in my head, so. The rest of the committee, do you, Bob?
Could we go back to the Bedford Street? Bedford Street.
So what you're,
Or the Bedford Street site.
That is,
this is
Bedford. It's
Bedford Street.
mislabeled, we just
It's-
did that
yeah,
to
it's
totally mess everybody up.
Okay, right.
The
So this
slides
is-
are switched.
This is
You
Bedford
probably
Street.
said that at the beginning.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
sorry,
Ted Williams.
User error.
Yeah, so can you do that? So
It's to
that's-
give Lakeville residents advantage.
Right. So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, yeah, I'll walk through what's a little hard to see here.
Yeah.
Obviously, the shaded is the building. The main apron is out front, access to Bedford Street. The main entrance would be here.
Yeah.
So it's visible. There would be some visitor parking here. So this is handicap parking, come in, do permits, that kind of thing. There's some secondary parking here. When we get to the plan, you'll see, some of this is why. Kind of the fire department's parking, which is controlled off the back. We have a drive around the end, which allows, call personnel to come in as equipment's leaving. So it's not you don't have to wait for as many, call personnel to get here to get equipment back out to the sites, additional equipment. We're identifying stormwater and septic up here now really as placeholders for areas. And we've allotted for a training, facility kind of tucked back in here. And again, those are really just placeholders. We wanted to make sure that everything fit on the site, and then we can move the pieces around, whether it makes sense to shift parking, or that can all be discussed. But the idea is, staff traffic and visitors traffic is coming in here, which allows complete access. There's no conflict between apparatus having to leave and people coming in, either staff or visitors coming to the building.
So all emergency vehicles are exiting uninterrupted or unimpeded by any civilian traffic at that point. And this is the only site that works on, which is really why that was one of the things that we rated pretty high on. It has the cleanest circulation pattern. Obviously, trucks coming back, they could go back the way they came out, or they could come back through the 10 Williams Camp
Right.
site.
They can come in this way, or they can have the ability to come back this way, whatever is convenient for them. But going out, the idea is we really wanted to be able to separate those two. And this is the only one where they have so now the department has the ability to have trucks exit in both directions, out the back and out the front, which helps them with, staffing that second wave of call people, what piece of apparatus do they really need besides the first piece they go out with, without having to kind of juggle apparatus around.
Primarily, everything goes out the front. I don't know, probably 80% of the time, maybe.
Yeah, we'll put our busiest pieces out front, but our low frequency, kind of high stress calls, a lot of times they're coming out of the back of the building.
So the exclamation point is there is no emergency response vehicles exiting the site and going on to the Ted Williams Drive.
Correct.
That's needs to be made very clear. That was the goal here.
No, I think that was a concern, that was brought up, and, we did meet with, the Parks Commission at one point, so. How big is this particular area? Did you say, like 2 acres, 3 acres,
You can roughly assume an acre. In terms of development, it really would take a hydrologic model, a septic design to understand the total impacts. Obviously, these areas that we show are pretty rough, but a lot of impacts for other fire stations that we've done with Secosio About an acre.
Yeah, it's probably, to be honest, it's probably pushes more towards an acre and a half to give you some breathing room. That, we're delineating just actual development. If you take buffer areas and the like, it's probably more comfortable. Again, we've done it, I can show you sites we did on a half an acre, so it can be done, but not quite this big. I mean, the footprint alone on this building is 16 or 18.
16,
16,000.
8, I think, 16.
For the first floor, so it's almost a half an acre by itself, so you get a feel. So I think it's a little north, we actually didn't take that off, it's a good question, we can get you that answer, but I think the development is more north of acre and a half.
Spencer, you also mentioned Zone A would probably be touching a corner. Whereabouts on, looking at this, would that fall?
It's labeled, you can sort of see this faint
That's right.
black line, so between the parking and
Okay.
the building,
Yep.
you can see this faint black line that follows the back of the building. That's your Zone A zone. So it's very easy to just place the septic outside of that.
Okay.
You just place it more plain west.
And this line right up here,
The 100-year flood, yep.
is that the 100-year flood?
Yep. It's a setback for the 100-year flood, yeah.
That's the 100-year.
Yeah. So
Buffer zone.
the northeastern corner
It's
of the
just kind of clipping the site, but
yeah. So there will be Concom performance standards to
Okay.
meet. And those sometimes they're associated with plantings, project costs, greater stormwater implications. But that's really a design thing that we have with Concom rather than a functionality of the site sort of deal.
Okay. Yes.
Is this parcel under the control of the park department?
So, to answer that, and sure, Bob, and we're gonna, certainly have to consult with council on it. When we did this police station, we consulted, House Counsel, Senate Counsel, and KP Law, and it was determined at that time not to be Article 97.
Yeah.
So it's my understanding that it's under the care and custody of the select board.
Yeah, that's good, because I know we talked about it here, one of our meetings, the Article 97, we're doing an Article 97, I don't know what the right term is, but in Bourne right now, and we're just starting that process. It's a bunch.
yes.
Yeah,
I mean, it can be done, but it's
It
just,
can be done.
Just to provide a little additional, on that, is Article 97 has changed a little bit over the last couple of years, where there's been clarification as to the process in which you'd have to seek special legislation to remove that, or have a non-Article 97 use. So that's why we still need to circle back once we get a
yeah,
site location.
yeah, because we talked about that in December, actually.
Yep.
So we could go through the plans now, but we wanted to just sort of spend some time on the site, and then we'll go through the plans, what the building looks like, and then we can have more discussion.
Mark, if I can, just real quick on the site, looking at the locations, you did a great job articulating which one might be best and why. That's, like Lorraine said, that was my thoughts anyway, is to be the Bedford Street site. Is there been any communication with MassDOT or any consideration on whether or not they would allow a curb cut of that length?
We've had those conversations, and Spencer can talk to that, especially because it's a public safety, obviously. There was some question about the location of the Ted Williams, the distance there from the beginning of the curb cut as well. But if you want to speak to that, we haven't had a formal conversation, but
Yeah, we've developed one in Plymouth that had a very sizable curb cut that was expanded upon, and that really flew with MassDOT pretty well. A lot of what they concern themselves with is how are you affecting the right of way, and how traffic is sort of managed. So temporary traffic management plans are a big thing for them, but long-term implications of a curb cut of that length, they're usually forthcoming with those things when it involves public safety like that. If we were connecting to drainage and stuff, that'd be a whole separate issue. Those require a lot of studies and a lot of calculations and a lot of review and comments. But cursory review says that wouldn't be the case. It would just be a curb cut. So in terms of permitting, it doesn't seem like it would be too much of a hang up, especially with it being public safety.
Excellent. And the reason I bring that up, Rick, you worked with us closely on that. We did get hung up a little bit on the police station when we constructed it
Okay.
because of the proximity of other access.
I see.
Mainly the Williams Camp access. So
Yeah.
I think that would be something we might want to circle back on and have a preliminary discussion with MassDOT.
Yeah.
Just to make sure it's not a hard no.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, we
hard to
got-
say what
yeah.
they would say right now.
Probably the biggest ask was actually in Bourne, is that 20, the main road going 24?
MacArthur Boulevard.
MacArthur Boulevard. That's not a road, that's a highway. And I'm not, we all know it going down that road. They weren't excited about it, but they said they would grant it because again, it was public safety. With some precautions, as much as we could, they wouldn't let us, they said no to the signaling, right? They said no to the signaling there, which we were a little surprised because we thought that would help. We ended up not going to that site, but the long and the short of it was that was probably as difficult an ask as you would get, given that that is not a secondary road by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, it's scary, even just getting off. So it was one of the reasons we went away from it, but I think they'd work with us, based on the interactions I've had in several of them with different sites. But we will follow. That's why we want to select a site. And moving forward, those are sort of next steps. Now we develop it even further in terms of.
It's important to note too, but both of these sites on this side would require MassDOT permitting anyway, right? Because of the water line extension. So it's something that I ran into here. I figured I'd.
No. It needs to be dealt with. Absolutely.
So we can have those conversations pretty quickly, yeah.
Yeah.
Like Spencer was saying, it's a small world, so we work together a lot, but, MacArthur Boulevard was a tough one that, they were okay with, and in 3A, in Plymouth is, equally as tough. It's a busy road, poor visibility, very active and, area of the town, and they were fine with expanding that, so.
But I mean, one of the criteria that really wasn't included in this matrix, but one that we have to consider is marketability. And I think the least popular of the three sites would be Precinct. It'd be the hardest sell with the townspeople. I think there's a lot of people, you hear to the ground, there's a lot of people that are opposed to that site that are willing to push back. It was a deal breaker for them. They're in general, they're supportive of what we're doing here. But they thought that location was a deal breaker for them. So I think marketing, this is an easier sell.
Yeah, excellent point, too, Chief, because even Site B, we heard here, it's gonna require a larger land disturbance, right? We're trying to be, specifically conscientious of what area of the parks we use, so, the Bedford Street site is gonna use less land area, there's gonna be less mitigation with natural heritage because you have less disturbance. So there's a lot of pros with that property, and I've been hearing the same thing. Out of any of the proposals, the Bedford Street, as close to Bedford Street as we could get, has been the best one.
And it does start to bifurcate that whole area, which is contiguous landmass. It's better to take a chunk in the corner. We did talk about that internally. We didn't mention it yet today, but we think that's more in keeping with what for approvals would be more appropriate.
In particular with National Heritage.
Yeah.
Because this corner on Bedford Street is already fragmented, and the habitat has been fragmented because of that. So it's an easier approval process there than the parcel in the back. Precinct is also fragmented, from a habitat perspective. So I would put Precinct in the Bedford Ted Williams corner is about the same category, but the internal parcel on Ted Williams is not fragmented. So in other words, we would be impacting more habitat by doing that parcel. And so that one of the reasons we rated that a little bit lower when we're in that category. So.
All right, before we go on, I have to back up 45 minutes because I didn't do what I was supposed to do when I opened the meeting. So LakeCAM is recording this meeting. Is there anybody else recording? Okay, let's proceed. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just one thing. I know that we're going to move into the plans, and we can come back to the site. Our goal would be to try to come up with a plan as to how we can gain site approval to move forward in the process. Because once we can focus in on one site, then we can do all of the investigations necessary and move this process closer to being ready for the spring annual town meeting.
Okay, so on that, I know we didn't put a vote on, any recommendation, because this subcommittee has been charged with, reviewing the sites and making a recommendation back to the select board. So I guess what I would envision, because we're under a little time frame here, to meet town meeting, is perhaps we look to schedule a brief meeting next week. They'll give everybody a chance to kind of digest everything that we're hearing this evening. And then, you know, we can discuss and then vote a recommendation. The select board is meeting on the 25th. So we can, you know, maybe have a quick presentation if you're available to come in, just so that we can update the select board as a whole, as to what was discussed here and why we're making that recommendation. Because it will be them.
And if it's helpful, we can circulate this PowerPoint. We'll send you a PDF.
We
do
can
you
leave
have
it with you.
PDF?
I have a,
Do you
I have
a
it on.
PDF on there too?
I don't have a, no, I don't have a PDF, but I have a
If someone,
flash drives with it, so you can keep that.
Excellent, so we'll make sure that we, you know, the other members, receive that too, and they can look at it before we, but we can discuss that later at the
can we,
meeting. So.
not to confuse it, because I don't like, let's flip those, fix the sites, and then we'll send it to you tomorrow, because I don't want that out in the public.
Oh,
It'd be
right.
totally
No,
confusing.
no, I agree.
We'll just correct the record, and then tomorrow you'll have it, and we'll send you just a PDF, it's easier.
Yep.
And then you can circulate whatever you want, but those, I just have to flip those two slides that are wrong, not to
Understood.
confuse
Nope,
anybody.
Understood.
Let's not have it out in the public.
Madam Chair, are we able to vote, during a virtual meeting, just for convenience for the group?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
we
still allowed to be able to do that, so.
As long as it's posted.
I'll be virtual from the Maldives, but I won't be checking in.
Good for you.
They don't have things there, I know. I'll be on the beach.
It's all about you, Mark.
He's just jealous because it's usually about him.
All right, so we'll walk through the plan. And again, as we kind of mentioned on, and Rick explained earlier, there was a kind of in-depth programming study that we did that kind of sized these, kind of led to this, the general size of this building. And we will provide that for review, but as backup, it's kind of very in-depth, so we'll give you the overview now. So, main entrance is flanked by the watchroom, so staff at all hours can have access to a secure vestibule that they can talk to any visitors, anyone that's coming in, and still control access to the building. When you come in, straight ahead is a triage room, so if for these walk-ins, they come in, they can escort them right into the triage room right there, where they'll have equipment, be able to assess and assist walk-ins. We have a kind of staff toilet room right here, which is accessible. Really, the idea is to keep fire department staff near the watchroom at all times during the day, especially, you know, off hours when administration's not there. So we have, to the left is really all, in blue is all administration. So we have a general administration office, deputy chief, conference room, and chief's office all in the line here. Kind of an administrative public restroom. So again, to keep kind of flow of this first one is really about keeping fire department staff at the ready as long, so we've kind of doubled up with that. Back corridor gets you to the back of the station, and it also gets to the training room. So this is a 40-person training room, some storage, IT control room, and 2 public toilets. So this can be secured and blocked off from the rest of the department. So it could be used for outside community use, similar to this room. We have a stair in the back and a stair up front that accesses the residential side of the department. And we'll go from this back is really the call on a call. So call staff will be coming in the back door. The gear room is right here. It's located centrally. So full-time staff that's up on the second floor can come down either stair right into the gear room and then out into the apparatus bay. If everyone's not familiar, their general function, because of the staff is both ambulance or fire, they pick up what gear they need on the way to the apparatus they're taking. So gear is not, in some departments, gear is put out when you're on duty, gear is put out by your vehicle, but they don't know what vehicle they're going to be called at or what gear is going to be needed for those calls. So everybody comes through the gear room on their way out to apparatus. In a similar, tucked in over here, is the decon room. So when you're returning either from off an apparatus or, coming back in, if somebody, it's frowned upon, but if somebody's in their own car and coming back from the site, there's quick access to a room where you can clean all the gear, you can clean yourself. There's a couple showers in here. Really kind of decontaminate from a scene very quickly without going through the station. Then we get into the main apparatus. So we have a little bit smaller apparatus bay that holds is intended to hold ambulances. So ambulance is a high use vehicle. We want them to be readily accessible. There's also an EMS storage room right here. So the idea is they can refill the ambulances quickly and easily and conveniently. And then into the larger apparatus bay. So we've got three kind of full-size bays that allow the tower, two engines back to back. You can see this is an ambulance, a boat. Some of these less used pieces can fit in between. And then two smaller bays in the back. So you have more of your SUVs, pickup trucks, brush. So the idea is high use apparatus up front, and as you get farther away from access is the lower use apparatus at the end. We have mechanical space and some storage space, which leads to some training, and then we have some covered outdoor pieces for some additional SUV kind of more civilian type vehicles that they have in use. So this covers all the current apparatus, at least undercover, with the majority of it internal to the building.
So talk a little bit, the colors are mindful in a sense that, so when we talk about one of the things that's extremely important is firefighting health and safety. So we have, in this case, red zone, which is what we call the dirty zone, the hot zone. The yellow is the transitional zone, and then all the other colors are clean. So the idea, if you think of the yellow zone as an airlock, that you don't want to walk directly from a hot zone, meaning the red, which is dirty in a sense, to a clean zone without going through a transitional zone. So negative pressure and all the things that are associated with that as well. So it's very important for the health and safety of the firefighters as well as the people using the building, that any contamination is contained within that red zone, and then you get the buffers in between. So the red is intentional in that sense here for graphically speaking as well.
I'd like to add something as well. A lot of stations you see the apparatus bay is the full depth for the entire width of the apparatus bay. What the design team has done here is fit the particular size equipment and decrease some of the bay depths to save square footage. And it also improves and it helps the massing, the view of the facility from the outside, trying to keep the massing down. But just minimizing those square footage areas saves money. So they fit the equipment in here.
One of the things we tried to avoid was having a 7-bay fire station for marketability. The residents would probably freak out. It could be justified because the goal would be to have everything inside, but we wouldn't want to sink a project based on by something that's being viewed as too grandiose. So you know, it doesn't really matter if my car is outside, if it's under a covered space. So that's where that overhang and that outside storage came from.
So while you're doing that too, it's worth mentioning you're building in efficiencies from a heating and cooling perspective. So we're not building something just to create additional space. So you're picking it up on multiple fronts, right? From an efficiency perspective, from a construction perspective, square footage impact, things of those nature. I do, looking at the floor plans, has this been reconciled with the site plan? Only reason I say that is because the Bedford Street site showed handicap parking on the southerly portion of the lot, which would be.
So, yeah,
not
so
really.
yes, to a certain extent, it hasn't all been figured out, but the idea is on the Bedford Street site that there would be some parking here adjacent to that. Whether that is directly off Ted Williams as a second drive, I think is how Spencer's showing it in some of the images, but you'll see later, we're kind of showing it possibly off of the parking, so just to reduce the curb cuts on that road.
Okay.
But the idea is that, you would have access to this area for some visitor parking, handicap parking, for those, you know, if you're coming in just to permit, run something by, discuss something, they can come in, they're near the front entrance, they're not parked in the back and have to come all the way around. But the real thing is we want to provide that without them going on the apparatus bay.
Correct.
If that isn't up front and noticeable, people will just pull up and park on the apparatus bay to come in, so.
Yeah.
And I will tell, a fib in this, or confess to the point that the station, basically, the design of this station was based on Bedford Street. So we did then fit it on the other ones. So if you said go to precinct, we might look at things to be different, flipped, whatever. So to be fair, the building was predominantly designed for what we think is your primary site. And we would reserve the right to make some adjustments if you decided to go to other sites. But in keeping that in mind, so that's why, just so fair observation, but understanding that it really isn't one size fit all necessarily.
And I failed to mention the first time going through, we're showing a separate entrance for the training room so that it can be accessed from the back. So if there was a meeting like this tonight, essentially cut off from the fire department, there are some egress reasons why you would be able to access the corridor, but you could access it from outside. The event could happen, everyone could leave without them having access to the fire department.
But you still have access to the exit, that corridor going out the front door, again, without going through a red zone. So that's very important.
We have to maintain an access down through here to get second means of egress out of this room. But again, we looked at this, in multiple ways, and really the idea was not to let them go back out, which would be the red zone, or give them access potentially to the stairway upstairs. So this would keep them into more public space for emergency as well as main egress.
So one of the things, like if you're looking at this, you see kind of like, you think it on the surface, it looks like contradictory strategies. When we jump ahead to the second floor, you'll see excess space, and that's designed for having a fire department that's feasible for 20 years out, 30 years out, whatever the case may be. And then you don't really see that same room for expansion here. And that more or less aligns with our strategy for procurement of vehicles. You'll see like a trend in fire department vehicles is that they're multi-purpose. So our new ladder truck, for instance, that's being finalized for delivery, it has a pump on it, and it has fire hose and supply line. It's a fire engine with a ladder, a fully capable ladder on it. And our next tanker, when we buy a tanker, it's not going to be just a tanker. It's going to be a combination engine. So you actually shrink the size of your fleet, or you stabilize the size of your fleet by doing more with the vehicles that you buy. So we're accounting for growth and apparatus needs in the future, but that doesn't necessarily mean more trucks or more vehicles. It just means more adaptable vehicles.
There's one other aspect we should point out here is that this facility is being designed without an elevator. So the second floor would not be ADA accessible. And the reason behind that is that the second floor is dedicated solely to able-bodied firefighters. And it's been accepted through ADA, but it's a decision that the town ultimately needs to make. An elevator can be incorporated into this, it's just the cost. We've had a number of communities that have been very successful without utilizing elevators. Other communities would prefer to have them. So I just wanted to let you know that that's part of the design right now does not incorporate an elevator.
Yeah, we had that discussion in December, if you remember, and we had that, and certainly something we can circle back on if you feel that way. As the building inspector, you'll be weighing in heavily on that. Some towns, cities and towns, we do actually get a waiver from the state. And as I always caution everybody, the civil rights venue is that somebody could, nobody ever has. There's been lots of stations built that way, but.
Just the fact that it's for able-bodied firefighters is a problem. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
Isn't that discriminatory?
Well,
Obviously, hopefully they are.
We don't have a light duty policy, so we're either full duty or not. We don't have anybody working that's injured or disabled.
But you never know.
Yeah.
I mean,
So the job, well, it's an important fact, but the job description, I haven't read yours, but all the ones I've read are specific that you have to be able-bodied to be, like, there is, as the chief said, there is no light duty, so you're either capable of doing the job, and I know it sounds contradictory, but it is the way it is in that sense, so, obviously, everybody within the public is on the first floor. The public is not accessible or available to go to the second floor. As you'll see now, when we go up to
what's the cost of an elevator?
300.
Yeah, a couple hundred, 250 to 300.
It's your choice. I mean, we do stations with elevators. Don't get me
$300?
wrong.
I'm just
I
kidding.
know.
Take it.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, why don't we have two?
But it's a conscious decision. I would say most of the time we do not put them in. Like 95% of the time, we have put them in various locations.
So, and the layout is the pieces, if they went to that or like do the administration, the pieces that somebody that was handicapped could really do for the firefighter are located in accessible areas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really about separating the living quarters of, the full staff from
It
that.
definitely warrants further discussion because I have seen the waivers that you discussed, public safety, in able-bodied people. But, I'm looking at it too. I operated facilities here in town for a number of years, and we have custodial staff. They're not in the same category as firefighters. It's one of those things, like you said, a conscious decision to say that you may not have to do it. But building code, as we all know, is a D-. It means you passed. And in this particular case, at least my take on it would be, I think that we would want to find space in there to get an elevator. You never know what's going to happen, change your needs. If you ended up having extra space upstairs and you did any kind of walkthrough with residents, say you had a resident firefighter academy and you're training downstairs, you're bringing people upstairs to see, what they paid for. I feel like we should make sure that we have access. That's just.
You do have.
I would second that.
I'll be perfectly clear. We have to be even open houses. When we have an open house, like Plymouth's going to have an open house.
Yeah. Nobody can go upstairs.
Nobody can go upstairs. So we won't let anybody. It's not like
Exactly.
we're going to let anybody
Yeah,
upstairs.
it's Mattapoisett as well, that's their
So
policy.
there's just nobody goes upstairs. And as I say, it's a conscious decision. For instance, in Rhode Island, I can tell you all the stations we do with a second floor have an elevator because nobody will give us a variance. So it's unique to Massachusetts. I will say that. And as I always say, anybody can file a civil rights infringement against you. And there is no variance for accessibility. They give you a waiver, but even in the waiver, if you read the waiver, says that doesn't waive the right for someone.
Exactly.
So and this is a big facility, so as they get bigger, the bigger stations tend to have them, the smaller stations tend not. If you want to go to rule of thumb. thing. So,
Mike's gonna ask me to help move the couch up, so I'd really like to have.
you know, if it's the will of the committee, then, you know, this is your building, you'd make those decisions. $300,000 is not gonna make or break the project, and I don't say that cavalierly, it's just, if you feel strongly, then the case is answered.
I'm only one person, I think we can flesh that out during,
Yeah.
further
I
design,
think,
but.
I think there's plenty of space in here. We can find a home for an elevator. We're not so tight that.
I'm not moving. No.
Yeah, we're not so tight that there's no way we can fit an elevator in here. It's something that is doable if it's desired.
Take the chief's office away.
Who said
How many
that?
square feet? How many square feet is
I
this?
think it's 24 total.
So it's 24 total. The first floor is 16,800, I believe. So it's basically 17,000 square feet.
17 or 24?
17 on the first floor.
Well, total
Total is
project.
20, right around 20. We'll call it 25 because I think it's 16.8 and 8.
We'll add that to the plan, because it's not on there now.
What's the cost per square foot? The average, latest projects?
It depends.
800, 900?
It's more than $1 and less than 1,000.
But not much less than.
Yeah, closer to 1,000 than $1.
So we're saying
That's like asking who's your favorite child again.
It's 900 to 1,000.
900 to 1,000.
Yeah.
All right.
You think we were trying to avoid that, you guys?
Gotta ask.
Well, it's.
I'm an open book.
Yeah.
No, I will caution that you have to, this is a public meeting, it's important that when numbers start getting released, that we have flushed them out.
Oh, yeah.
Because all of a sudden, somebody hears a number and it goes up a little bit, it's like all of a sudden it's more, or it goes, it's just, I really sort of, to the marketability, just be careful with,
Oh, yeah.
with circulating or even talking about numbers. Our job is to give you a number and we'll do that. But yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
not too far off. But.
No problem.
So upstairs, we have the back stairway here. Front stairway is up here to kind of orient yourself. So if you come up the front stairway, there's a gym. This is over apparatus space. So it's isolated from kind of day-to-day operations. Bunk rooms around here. And again, these are all single bunk rooms. The larger ones for an officer. It's designed for future. So you can grow into this. They're not all needed now. On a daily basis, they may be used on emergency. Some of this isn't all, hopefully in, 20 years, we have 8 firefighters on staff. Some of this is emergency situations as well. An internal bank that has toilet rooms. They're all single-use toilet rooms and shower facilities. Some storage, some laundry, kind of all your utilities. And in the back, we have the kitchen open to the day room and a dining area, which was a big thing with the department, having the ability to sit down with the department. Not only the 4 people that are on there full time, but they do have call people in and out, and being able to really, create a community in this. There's some open space over the living or the training room. Apparatus bay is obviously open, and there's an access to an open mezzanine for storage that would be open to the apparatus bay. They could use that for storage. They could use that for training. It's kind of a multi-purpose space right up here, so they could access it for storage for, residential storage, or you could access it for gear storage. This would be treated more like an outdoor door, so that there is separation. I know we're showing this kind of red. We went through all that. This is open to the apparatus space, so it would be treated as a kind of a hard separation. It's not a daily storage room. It's really a gear storage room or a training space. And then you'll see we have a little tower element here that would have a platform on it, again, for training, where they could access possibly rappelling out of the tower. They can do different training gear or some storage areas in that. So this is a 2D elevation of what the front would look like. The rear of the building. And then some initial 3D renderings. And as Mark kind of mentioned, alluded to before, they look more finished than they are. And anything's changeable. It's very quick and easy these days to make these, so.
I'm not changing anything.
There's the
So-
elevator.
Well, that's good training. You can rappel, you can practice, you can lift.
I've broken elevators.
So this would be from Bedford
Can't have
Street
one.
near the Ted Williams Camp Drive.
Kinda.
Looking from the other direction from Bedford Street, so you can see the kind of, lost my pointer here. The covered parking outside, as we discussed, and the tower element, so there'd be a platform up here, which would allow training either, we've done before with confined spaces, with, different training apparatus, but these windows would be big enough from the side where you could also do rappelling and some other, key training drills out of that tower.
And mindful of, as we talked about before, if you go back to the front, that there is, a purposeful articulation of the facade so that it doesn't have that, one building huge. This is a pretty big building and with big doors, is a lot of big stuff. So trying to break the scale down so it feels more residential is probably a tough word, but more village-like, more consistent with the buildings that are in the area. So it doesn't feel like an anomaly. So a lot of the moves were mindful and purposeful in that sense.
So the entrance is, secondary, we stepped it back and then kind of made prominent where the vehicles are. And then this is where we really stepped those two bays back to really cut that down. So it kind of steps down as we go. I think this really helps kind of set that back to a more residential one-story tone. And still gives that kind of traditional fire station tower feel without creating a big tower space. And if you remember, this is mechanical and storage on the first floor, and with the element, it provides that additional storage and training opportunities with it. So the back's very similar. Obviously, the three bigger bays don't bump out. We maintain that space back here on the less visible side. And we've been kind of discussing all the way through, but if there are any other questions,
I had a thought, not that, I had talked to Taylor about this previously, and I know that Nate and I might have had a conversation too. There are some locations where a cell tower could have been erected on top of the building. I'm thinking of it from a couple of different perspectives. One, our cell service in town, depending on where you're driving, drops often. And if we're in the process of doing a building project, would it be, I guess, feasible or viable to even include something like that? It could be a revenue generator for the town, having, something on this side of town. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there for, discussion and.
That's something you certainly look like. I know that the technology with, 5G now it's a whole different, they're not relying on towers as much as, I know my brother-in-law and sister-in-law work for the phone company, so they talk about it, so I'm a little out of school, but the traditional sort of tall tower might be a thing of the past as we move forward, but you still have a tower, they still need elevation, but it's almost to a benefit to like your situation here where they could use that tower potentially, but they don't need all the height of a traditional cell tower, so.
I don't know if I'm using the terminology properly, but like one of the soft costs it's gonna be the communications. Currently at our station, we have a tower that's in disrepair. It's been cited as basically compromising the walls of the existing structure. It's causing cracks. And we've actually looked into the cost of taking that tower down and actually erecting a temporary tower just to get us through to the next facility. So there's going to have to be some kind of communications element. I don't know if it's coming across to the police station and having some kind of combined structure that speaks to the whole network that we have developed in the town. But maybe there's an opportunity there, because, you know, maybe we will have to build a tower, and if we're building a tower, maybe there's an opportunity there, you know? But I assume there's consultants and experts that we're gonna have to speak to, about this whole, our communications aspect of the building.
No,
Question, could you go back to could you describe cause it seems very stretched out, like you said. Could you show what a typical call would be if people are up in either their bunk rooms or in the kitchen, and the distance to the trucks, it seems long.
Yeah.
So, we'll do this in two pieces. If you're in your bunk or in the main area. So obviously the main area has quick access to both stairs. Bunks, it's kind of, you know, these guys are probably going to the back stairs, this front going to the front stair. Down the stairs, sorry. So this is the back stair. You would come out. Within a few feet, you're in the gear room. And then out the gear room and down to the apparatus. Down the front stair, you come out, basically right out of the stair into the gear room, grab their gear, and then back out. You have access on both ends. Now, that's your path to the apparatus bay. So it's really an operational thing on why the kind of length and that this is 6 deep works. The majority of the calls are going to be going to this vehicle right here. And then the idea is second most calls, you know, so your ambulance is the majority of the calls, they'll be right there. You know, if you have a second ambulance call, it's right in the back. Again, access right there.
There's traditional devices like a pole that you can add to expedite from the second floor.
That's where I was going with
Yeah,
this.
there's a slide. Some newer departments use slides to, you know, take a ride down from the second floor. But I'm guessing our what's the word I'm looking for? Our insurance company that covers job-related injuries. I'm sure they frown upon those devices. It's kind of they try and talk us out of installing those things. Good firefighter injuries.
in all the stations we've built, and there's been multiples, 15, 20, they put one pole in.
Oh, okay, I mean,
So it's, there's a whole bunch of things with the pole. We did it in Waltham, and the chief, traditional, they had a pole, they wanted a pole. And so, we put it, and it's a high bay area, and, the chief's telling the story about how much safer they are, but, you know, the only time I ever got hurt was coming down the pole, so, you know, it was like, I said, chief, I mean, seriously? But they really wanted it, in other towns and cities that we brought it up, or it's been brought up, I will say the insurance companies do frown upon it. There's really only one company that makes a fire rated, because it has to be fire rated, because of this, you're coming generally, there's a couple of ways to do it, but obviously from a residential or second floor down to a bay, it has to be sealed for the carcinogens as well. There's really only one company that makes them. It works, it's not something, we have never done a slide, they take a lot of room, I've looked at them.
I asked for one, they went like this to me.
Yeah.
Shook their head at me.
But they take a lot of square footage. I mean, I'm not a firefighter, but talk to a lot. We make the stairs extra wide. They're comfortable. It's easy. You know, they're not going down a rickety set of stairs. So, it works. I mean, it works well. So.
Waltham, where we did do, I mean, other than that pole we put in was scary, looking down 26 feet or whatever it fell. I mean, it was a big pole, but most of the staff there said the older guys would not use it no matter what. The younger guys tend to use it. And they said it does take a toll on you landing they had a 13-foot slot pole. It was the original one we kept, and then they added a 25, 26-foot one.
So from the
Not
moment,
a lot of people going down that one.
the moment 911 rings in that room, like for this call that's going on right now, the standard says he has 1 minute to alert us to that call. He's got 1 minute from the first ring to take all the information and to make us aware of the call. And from that point that we become aware of the call, we have 1 minute to have wheels rolling and getting out. So we have a 2 minute turnaround time. We have a 2 minute turnout time for an emergency call. That's the standard. And that's what we measure against, and that's what's recorded on our run reports, and it's a report that we we run and for compliance, and then we take it seriously. We're double that in our current station, and we never achieve our desired turnout time. So the goal here is to put our busiest piece of apparatus, like they said, closest to the living quarters. In our busiest time of day, we get our most severe calls, our most high acuity calls at night, and we get our largest call volume is during the day.
Yeah.
So more routine calls during the day, but more often. The second floor is going to be kind of a ghost town outside of mealtime. The firefighters are expected to be on the floor, be in training, be working, so they're going to be on the first floor. So you're going to see an overall improvement in our turnout times, and it'll be. It won't be as good on the second floor, but it'll be better than what we're experiencing.
So when you take an average, when people are averaged where they usually are, you're way less than the maximum distance.
Yep.
So while you're still on that subject, what was I going to say? How many doors do you have to go through? It seems like a door at the top of the stairs, pushing outward, heading down, and then a door at the bottom of the stairs, pushing outward as well.
So some of that's code compliance. So
keep it
if you're in an exit enclosure, you have to have doors that close and contain smoke, travel, things like that. So most of those doors don't require latches. Usually they have panic hardware or push devices on them, paddles. So they don't take any special knowledge, and you don't have to turn doorknobs to get through them.
So, yeah, you would have a door at the top of the stair, door, assuming you're not in a room already, door at the top of the stair, door at the bottom of the stair.
All the rest of the doors are gone, we've taken.
Everything else is open except for our doors into the decon room, which is really about containing, highest area of carcinogens. So those doors and the stairs, again, they're twofold. Fire, just control, making that stair able for egress if there was ever a fire in this building.
Right.
And two, it provides kind of a second, a double airlock for keeping the hot area, the dirty area downstairs away from the residential area upstairs.
Gotcha.
So while there is multiple doors, from one aspect, from the fire code, they could be held open unless the alarm goes off. From the separation of staff to, the apparatus and potential contamination, they're better left closed.
And then I got a follow-up question, Chief, if you don't mind.
No.
So by having that tower on the far end, in addition to training your own people, you could host neighboring towns that don't have such an area.
It's something that we try to do because we work so much.
Right.
Mutual aid's an everyday occurrence now.
Yeah.
And so we try to do regional trainings as much as we possibly can. So yes, this would be a facility that would host regional trainings.
Like for once, we could have other towns come here rather than vice versa, perhaps.
That would be a beautiful thing.
Just want to add one complexity to this with regards to the access that you were questioning. There is another option. It's not a popular option, but it's a kind of an upside down cake in the sense that you put your administration on the second floor and you put all your living quarters on the first floor. But it does increase the footprint of the building. It may decrease the second floor area, but it does increase your footprint. And you still end up with this, just about the same number of doors going through to get to the apparatus bay, but what you do eliminate is the stairs.
Gotcha.
And from a command perspective, it decreases my situational awareness when I'm upstairs and remote from operations. And the use of chief officers in Lakeville, we're very much throwing our gear on and running out the door every day and pulling hose until the cavalry arrives, our callback firefighters. So we're better served being on the first floor, being close to the apparatus as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's the OPM.
Is the intent with the mechanical space for mechanical, electrical, plumbing? I guess I would just have concerns that to support the administrative side of the building and the upper floors, we're going to be running everything, kind of channeling it across the apparatus bay to pick all of that up. So I'm not sure if that's been thought about. Is that usually heated, those spaces, or in the uppers?
Apparatus bay is heated because of the water on the trucks.
Okay.
And the medications and things like that are temperature sensitive.
Temperature control, yeah.
And there is, with the roof, there is, quite a bit of attic space up here. So what we've done a lot of times is these attic trusses, we could put attic trusses up here and it's just filled with mechanical equipment. So it's not conflicting with, kind of the day-to-day operation equipment that they need in the apparatus bay, but it gets up into the attic space and it's a clear run across.
And correct me if I'm misspeaking, some of the things like when you see mechanical, it's not maybe the traditional mechanical, like what you think of in architecture. Sometimes our mechanical is like for operating on SCBA, like equipment repair. Is that the case on this drawing?
There's both, but, and then mechanical rooms, have decreased tremendously in size too. If we quite often use a VRF system, so it's all electric, more energy conscious, we can talk about, photovoltaics on the roof and things, we haven't got to any of the, sort of sustainability goals and things that are important to the project, but we're running, line sets now instead of, and that mechanical room, if it has the sprinkler in there, we also use the sprinkler room as a training area, so we have accessibility to.
A lot of time we find the sprinkler in the backflow that all goes out where it's open so they can easily train on it. That way, this building allows them to use their equipment easily to train for other
But it's a good
facilities.
question. It's the first thing our engineers say when we give them the plan, like, what are you doing for us?
Mechanical.
I sort of figured, it's okay. We usually leave you out for a while. We'll work you back into.
We'll find space.
But that, even that other, the blue room that's in the top,
Yeah,
that's
this-
actually not a bathroom.
This is
that's
actually IT.
That's
Yeah.
IT.
IT, so it could be IT.
Mechanicals, sub panels, stuff like that. So it is intentional
Yeah.
that some of that is done.
Okay, with
So,
that intent.
we're not quite there yet, but it definitely, would be something we need to address. It's a good question.
Oh, it's a great visual. Yeah. Thank you very much. Anybody else have any, questions or, would you be able to just maybe just print those pages, the last couple of pages that we can just, tuck in our books just to, have for visual when you're with the updates?
Yeah, so we'll give you the PDFs and then you can print,
Rip them
Whatever
from that,
pages.
right?
yeah, if that's, unless you, yeah.
No, that's fine, we'll just.
Does that
print
work?
it from that, Yeah, I think Christine can. Yeah,
We'll send you the PDF tomorrow with the few little changes. We'll add the square footages on there as well, and then get them over there.
One of the things I'd like
Because
to
we need to verify it, so we got the right number.
I'd like to commend you guys on is, we discovered in the programming phase that we had to be really careful what we said out loud, because you guys were so tuned into what we were saying, that we'd see versions of a plan developed just on side discussions, like you'd see things enter into the plan, just were part of the discussion phase, never really a recommendation. Like, we had to we had to learn to be very clear about what was a suggestion and what was just discussion. Like, you guys were very, very tuned into what we were saying, and we would see we would see the results of it in the revised plan. So it was pretty gratifying to see. You feel like we were definitely heard during the process.
well, there doesn't seem to be any fluff here from what I can
No.
see, so it was everything's got a purpose and functional and.
One of the cool things too is that, see that conference room between the deputy chief and the chief's office is the possibility of expansion of administration. So you could add a fire prevention officer, and all of a sudden that becomes another administrative office. So that's one example of room for growth in the building, the change of the structure of the thing. And it provides me with this great separation between me and the deputy, so we don't fight as much.
It's a love hate.
Weight rooms are common.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. And,
Sometimes that's a tough sell for the public, obviously.
True.
yeah, it's interesting, we did the Brewster Station, and it happens to be upstairs, which is not always as common on the second floor. It worked out here, worked out there, and one of the things the chief said to me when it was all done was that, he was a little hesitant about it being on the second floor, but the firefighters do spend a lot of time up. There's more full-time, so they're there a little bit more.
Yeah.
And he said by putting it up there, they use it more,
Yeah.
because it's right there. It's convenient, like, you don't have to walk too far to walk to exercise.
Wow.
No contradiction,
That's tough, huh?
there, but you know what I
Jim,
mean.
it's tough too.
So I'm one of the few firefighters that's gotten lighter over my career. And basically the most common causes of death are cancer and cardiac arrest. And so you get hit with this jolt of adrenaline. It's not good for your system. In the middle of the night, you're sleeping, and the way your body prepares for it is by exercise. And what worked for me was peer pressure, people getting me into the weight room at the fire station.
Yeah.
And that's what got me into going to the regular gym. If I hadn't had that peer pressure early on in my life from my peers, from my senior firefighters, I never would have gotten the gym. And that's what I'm hoping to achieve there, is we have a healthier staff. It's mission related. This isn't a convenience.
I get it.
This puts out a better product on the street.
Physical health is huge, obviously, when it comes to firefighters. But one of the aspects that we see with our communities, and we learn every single time, is that there's a competition out there for staff, for employees.
Oh, God, yeah.
And people that are interviewing for several different communities, that want to be a firefighter or a police officer or any position, they kind of look at their surroundings and look at what they're going to be living in, particularly if you're going to be living here. So I think it's important for the community, and that's probably one of the sales pitches we want to present, or one of the benefits we want to present, is that you need to attract and keep your firefighters. You spend a lot of time training them and getting them through the process, and a lot of communities see them going to leave to a community that just built a brand new facility.
Funny, it
So
sounds
it's,
like we had that conversation this afternoon, didn't
did.
we?
It's
Quite literally.
very important.
There's not that many people outside the service that appreciate what you just said or understand that element to it. They look at the contracts. It's a different generation now. They look at where they're gonna live and they size up, and if they're not happy with it, they move on, or they never go there in the first place.
Right.
And that's
Yeah,
huge that you made that comment. Thank
The
you.
wait lists to get into fire and police are long gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, not that long ago, right? 10 years ago, there were wait lists, considerable ones.
That was
Maybe-
190 to get my
Yeah,
job.
yeah,
And
so now, just in my hometown, Smithfield, and it's a nice town, it's easy, it's low crime, and they had 6 applicants. It's just unheard of, it's low. Usually they get 30 or 40.
Yeah.
So, it's, it'll probably turn around again, and there's been some, whatever, I won't digress. Moving right along.
Can I ask a question before you change the slide?
Yes.
For perspective to the townspeople, what's a 40-person conference room look like? Would you say that this is a 40-person conference room?
It's pretty close to this.
Okay.
It's slightly bigger than this.
Because there's people that come to this place since
Yeah.
it's been open and it's quite popular,
We've-
and having a second one would be very helpful to the town.
We've allowed, so this is 40 seats over here. This one is a little larger, so it's probably a little larger than this.
Larger than, yep.
Which allows for different configurations, different training situations for staff. So, but it's comparable to
Okay.
this.
little room for LakeCAM right there. You know?
Yeah, we actually
Yeah.
put that in.
Yeah,
No,
we got a
that
little-
that was intentional. That's what that room in the back is for specifically. We did not have that originally. But we can, it'll be interesting. I know Rick has the drawings for this, I'm sure. We'll do a comparison just to let you know how that room compares to this room in size. Cause, it's a good question. Somebody may ask, public meeting, is it similar to this room? You could say it's slightly larger, slightly smaller, whatever it is.
Because based on the attraction of the meeting and how volatile the meetings are, it determines how big of a space you need. So our biggest gathering spot's the library, then this close behind it, and then if we had 2 of these, that would be very helpful to the town. So.
And that's why they specified the extra lavatories up there in blue,
Sure,
just
have
just for public use.
Yep.
Must have it.
Very nice. All right, anybody else on anything on this? Thank you very much for, taking the time to put this together. I think that, we were all anticipating holding our breath, and can't wait to see what, the needs, discussion, brought to the table. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so, next on the agenda, we have some invoices that we need to approve. Just to kind of dial back, Nate, I knew you could weigh in on this. With the police station building committee, we designated 3 people from the main body to sign, invoices, so not to have to wait for meetings where we had the whole entire body present to do so that we can move these invoices in and allow the payments to be made more timely. And we can certainly do that here with our fire station building committee, just designate, 3 people to sign that. If there are any invoices that are over 10,000, I think they would need to come back to the main body, for discussion, but, so I wanted to make sure that we had that, because this is the first time that we'll be actually, looking and approving invoices, so, keep that in mind, and when we get done with this, we'll have maybe a vote of who can do that, so. All right, so I don't know how we typically do this, I mean.
We can present the invoices to you, and we have several invoices for both firms. The first would be Secosio Associates. There are 3 invoices, invoice 223083-1, -2, and -3. And they're for certain percentages of the overall fee. The first invoice is for 5%. Next invoice is for 10%. And then the next invoice is for another 10%. So the combination of all 3 invoices brings us to 25% complete of their contract. I don't know if you want to vote on each of them independently?
Nate, how did we do this before? Do you remember?
So in this particular case, I feel like we can do all 3 Secosio independently and then Pomeroy separately would be my recommendation for now, so.
Sounds usually done.
I'll make a motion to approve Secosio and Associates Architects invoices number 23083-1, -2, and -3.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second, so, Mr. Nunes, you made the motion, you seconded. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? No? Okay, so those are all set.
Okay, then there's 4 invoices for Pomeroy Associates. The reason there's 4 is there was a period of time before Secosio was brought on board for the RFP and the interview process and everything else. So invoice 1 covers and there's a breakdown on the second page of the designer services and award for 100% of that allocated fee for $7,500. And invoice number 2 is 10% of the phase 1 schematic design phase for $3,885. Invoice 3 goes for another 10% for $3,865, and then invoice 4 for another 10%. The same amount, $3,885.
I'll make a motion to approve Pomeroy Associate LLC invoices LFSP -001, -002, -003, and -004.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
do you write a checkbook, right? All right, so we'll get those submitted through, so we can get those addressed. All right, so, I don't know if there's anybody that is interested in, being available to stop in, like, if we identify 3 people that are available, to come in when we have invoices to be signed. And we'll just make sure that that gets fed to the rest of the committee, so you can keep track of what we're spending, but, anybody want to volunteer?
I will.
All right, Peter?
Yeah, I'm around town a lot more than I used to be, so.
Really? That's awesome.
It's still not very much, but
I'm in town hall, so.
All right, so Peter, Bob, and Nate,
Nate.
or Chief?
The chief, probably.
All right.
Pete, you ever think about being a call firefighter?
Trying to get it back on the planning board. He's not
It
interested.
has been answered.
I got a lot.
He says he's got a lot going on.
I'll make down the final motion that the 3 individuals named will be allowed to sign invoices under $10,000.
I have a motion on the
Second that.
floor, and I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, we already discussed site location, so we'll just, so what is our availability for next week to have, a brief meeting so that we can, so we're, from what I understand, it didn't actually come out, but you're recommending, and I believe
C.
we're gonna go with C.
See.
Not the A, the C, which would be the Bedford
The real
Street
C, yes.
location.
Yeah,
Okay.
the real estate.
All right.
The soon to be fixed C.
So what do we have for availability next week? Because we can do a quick meeting during the day. We have to post, so Wednesday, we can do something Wednesday, looking at Wednesday, which would be the 20th.
Wide open.
Yep, I'm good.
Not
available during the day. That's,
For Zoom?
oh, for Zoom? Yeah, I could probably pull off a Zoom from my office.
10 a.m.?
10 a.m., we have a health insurance meeting with employees, so that probably won't work.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't work.
Yeah, no,
Would 1 o'clock work?
1
Better than
o'clock
10.
will work.
Okay.
I get something at 1. My first meeting starts at 6 a.m. I got a space between 7 and noon.
Great. Well, do we have a majority for, I mean,
1 o'clock's fine for me, I don't.
okay. Did you say you can't do 1?
Yeah, and I got something else at 1. I
2.
could do, I got something at 2, I could do 3.
That's fine with us. How does Tuesday look?
We have to. Well, we
Post
can
48
we
hours,
can
yeah.
po- Yeah, we can post.
We post
We've
tomorrow.
still, I keep forgetting today's Wednesday,
Yeah.
so. And we
We
still
can
have time.
actually meet Monday.
I'm thinking it's
Yeah.
Friday, you know.
Tuesday, the only bad time for me is 11:30. 11:30
so-
through 12:30.
Can we do 1 o'clock on Tuesday?
I get something at 1. I will open the rest of the day between 6 and 4, but
Like,
2 o'clock. 2 works.
2 works?
2 o'clock on Tuesday?
Okay.
Sold.
Great.
All right, so Tuesday,
2
March
o'clock.
19th, 2 o'clock, Zoom meeting. Okay.
I'll have a margarita.
All right. All right, so Christina will set that up for us. Thank you very much. I better write that down so I don't book anything else at that, so. So. Okay, excellent. All right, review and possible vote of the minutes, from October 18th, October 19th, and December 6th. I know we sent these out to the committee. Did everybody have a moment, to read through them? Were there any, corrections or anything? I thought that they were, they pretty much signified everything that we went through. I just have a couple of small grammatical things, but, which I don't usually pick those up, but, just on, I'll just go over it with everybody on October 18th. Second sentence from the bottom, the committee had a discussion, just drop the period, small a, about the presentations, so it flows. And then on the 19th, halfway down, third paragraph up, Chairman Carboni stated one of the things, just get rid of that and cross it off. So I'll just share that with you, Christina, if I can. But other than that, content-wise, I thought they were fine. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from October 18th, October 19th, and December 6th.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Excellent.
Present. I wasn't here.
So there'll be one abstention.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, any old business coming before this board, for discussion? Yes.
So as far as town meeting,
Yeah, I was gonna ask that.
Yes.
question.
what are we gonna be looking for?
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. So my understanding from our discussions was that we wanted to have, we would be asking for money for a schematic design at town meeting. Nate, feel free to chime in, because I know you've been listening along. So we are gonna have to come up with, what that cost figure is
Yeah.
gonna look like, obviously. It's gonna have to be a warrant article, so, we did have with us this evening, handed out. The select board has already opened the warrant for the annual town meeting, and it will be closing on, April 8th. But again, we can have a placeholder, for that. So leading up to that, there's obviously going to be some communication and presentation, that we have to get out. But first, it was identifying the site location, which was, I think, one of our first, point of order. And secondly is, trying to get that, I guess, design so that the public has an opportunity to visualize what it is that we were going to be looking to accomplish through that, and why they would be spending the money on a schematic design. So.
I could be a bit confused, so I'm gonna defer to everyone else here because I'm new to this game. But are we looking for money for schematic design or for design development through bidding?
So I think what we talked about before was how do we deliver the project, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the different ways that we could deliver the project. And we talked about some cities and towns finish the drawings and then go to town meeting with a hard set of numbers. It's done, there's no estimating at that point, versus us approving a budget, which we could give you now, and you approve X amount of $1 million, and then you try to meet the budget. The consensus from that, I believe the December meeting, was to try to finish the drawings, put it out to bid, and then go back presumably next spring with a warrant to award a contract for the amount of that bid, round about X amount of dollars, whatever that is. So I'm just giving you sort of the synopsis of what we discussed. I'm not suggesting one is better than the other. I often have this conversation, and just had it 2 days ago with another town. The disadvantage is you're spending a good deal of money on plans and specifications with the potential for it not going through. So you're gonna be spending upwards of several $100,000 versus us finishing up a package for you to go to town meeting with an estimate, with the understanding that there's a risk that that estimate and the reality of the construction dollars aren't the same, and then potentially having to either go back for additional money or whatever else there is, which is another difficult situation. So, in a normal market, we prefer option A, which is go do an estimate and finish the plans after everything's approved, because I don't want to see you all spending money that, that makes, again, who wants to spend several $100,000 and then the drawings get basically put in the corner? They're always good, you could always build it, I'm not saying, but as opposed to the other option, it's really your call. I would say the majority of the time we do schematic design, we do an estimate, we go to town meeting with that estimate with Rick and everybody, we all come together. And outside of COVID years, we're usually pretty good about hitting the numbers. Things are starting to level a bit. Numbers are starting to get a little more consistent. We are starting to see more bid action coming in now as well, as opposed to, we were begging people to bid. It's changing ever so slightly, not drastically yet. We still get some single bid projects. We just had one on Block Island, but that's a Block Island thing. But we just did a community center and a pool. We had 5 bidders. So things are changing a bit in that market. So it's really your call. I'm just putting that back out there. That's what we discussed. You may want to think about that and have another conversation on when you talk. I won't be here obviously on Tuesday, but if you put a placeholder, you can think about it some time. I mean, even in December, I was like sort of pushing more towards let's go out to bid, get the numbers, and come back. I always just feel guilty about that because, as he said, I don't want you to see. It's likely to pass at town meeting because you're going to get the appropriate amount of money to do that. But it's also that the flip side is the number's going to be the number regardless of whether you do it now or later. So, I mean, my honest opinion is tending more to just do it the traditional way of, get through schematic design. I have to look at what you've already bought. I think you've bought through schematic design already. I think
Yeah.
we own
You
through
you
schematic
purchased
design.
Early schematic design,
We
cost
own an
estimate, and a
right,
budget.
and an estimate and a budget. And you can
So-
go to town meeting with that, so X amount of dollars. We try to build in contingencies and the like. But there is an unknown, there's a risk about us not asking for enough money. And it's unfortunate, even if you have to go back to town meeting for $50, it's like you're going back for 50 million, right? So, I mean, we do a good job estimating, we hit them. I'm not suggesting to, but
That's the process that we went through. We just finished with Swansea Public Library bidding. We received our bids last Friday. And we went to town meeting with an early schematic design and a cost estimate that has contingencies, because we don't have all of the information just yet, but it has contingencies. And we had a very successful town meeting. Our bids came in last Friday, 10% under estimate, 10% under budget. Very, very pleased. So, you know, that's been the traditional method. And it sounds as if, you know, that's probably what we're prepared to do here. At least that's what you're contracted to do at this point.
yeah. No, we definitely had the discussion in December
Yeah.
about maybe going the other way. And
Right.
I'm not sure there was a consensus to go either direction. I'm just reiterating what we discussed that meeting.
It's just a big investment up front,
Yeah.
without knowing if it's supported by the community.
So, Madam Chair, has this issue been, has the fire station issue been on any of the town meeting warrants?
Just to get us here,
Just to establish the committee?
the committee and the money to get us to this
Oh,
point.
so the town meeting has
Right,
appropriated
it was,
money?
it was what, the,
Schematic
I
design.
believe it was.
220, okay.
yeah,
And
So the issue has been before town meeting.
correct.
without really any pushback, I don't think there was
Okay.
any opposed.
So, you know, we talked about it the other night at the budget presentation. We do have a fund that could possibly pay for schematic design. But I think Nate may have mentioned at another meeting, you know, you're gonna continue this process without really a formal vote at town meeting? Because to spend the money out of the capital stabilization fund, it doesn't need to go to town meeting, so. Does it? I don't think it have to go.
Is
It
your,
does.
is your point that the
It would
more,
have to go to town meeting.
more invested the residents are, the less likely they're to back
Yeah.
out at a late date? Is that the theory?
Yeah, I guess to do the transfer, you would have to take it out of capital stabilization. So, but it doesn't matter the funding source, it would still have to go to town meeting.
Right.
So the options are,
Yeah,
basically what you have contracted now, get you to town meeting, we'll get you a number. We have to need a drop dead date as to when we actually need that number, because I know you're gonna put a placeholder in by April 6th. We're gonna,
Eighth, right, I think.
yeah, I think, I'm sorry,
I'm gonna
8th.
give you 2 more days.
No, okay, decide, when do you
Any
actually,
thoughts?
if you were to do, I mean, if you were to establish a warrant article for a specific number for the building, when do you need the number by?
probably sometime early May, I would think.
That's more
You know,
realistic.
we'd have to have, you know, we advertise the warrant.
So
That's
by-
done mid to end of May.
So by, just, yeah, say May 1st, so it gives us,
Yeah, May 1st would be a good target.
because we need to, one, they're gonna select the site, presumably it's C. We have to do some
Let me-
due
let me-
diligence.
Allow me. We need a direction on the site. We need to do a site survey. We need to do geotechnical analysis and wetland survey, to make sure that it's a buildable site. So we would need to get those in line, in order to give you all of the information. You've got the tools to get it done, but we need to give you the appropriate information to do so. So it's a tight schedule.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, yeah.
But, you know, the other option would be to, and I don't want, I think that people are using the term schematic design incorrectly, so I want to make sure that we use it correctly. Right now, what the town of Lakeville owns is an early schematic design. There's 3 different phases: schematic design, design development, and then construction documents. So it sounds like what we're looking for is to get approval to proceed with the design to bidding after schematic design. So basically, right now, we would be performing schematic design, doing a schematic design estimate, and presenting that, a total project budget, to the community for approval. And we would be asking them for approval to proceed with the entire project.
So the money that was approved at town meeting is for the schematic design?
Correct.
All right, so that's off, so we don't have to, that's already done.
That's correct.
So the next would be design to build, to bidding.
Yep, design to bidding.
That would be the amount of money and the article.
Yep, and we would, if the community could decide of approaching that two ways, just fund the design to bidding and then go back to town meeting with the bids in hand, or approve the entire project budget, which would be the design to bidding and then the construction, which would be, estimated based upon the design documents that are being created now. So,
Which would then trigger debt exclusion.
that's correct, yeah.
So the strategies, the two strategies that you mentioned, do they affect move-in date?
I'm sorry?
Does either of those two strategies affect move-in date? Is the move-in date the same no matter what strategy we follow?
I think your move-in date would be quicker if the total budget was approved at the Springtown meeting, because if you just approve the design to bidding phase, and then you have to go back to town meeting for the bids, you have to wait for a town meeting, or you have to schedule a special town meeting, so you could have a delay there. The other risk is that contractors, sometimes they pay attention, sometimes they don't, but in very busy climates, contractors, when they're just choosing what projects to bid on, they look at the projects as to what has been funded and what's a risk. So if they have two projects bidding at the same time and one, the community has supported the project for the entire project, they're gonna bid on that one before they're gonna bid on one that's subject to town meeting approval. So the fastest process is to get to this Springtown meeting with an estimate with contingencies.
Yeah.
It's gonna have contingencies, it has to at this point, and get the entire project approved.
Okay. Versus just having design to bid and then come back for the whole construction
Yeah.
project, right? So if we're talking, I'll just pull this out, $1 million for this, bid, design to bid, and then have to go back for,
The construction component,
which could be
Right.
yeah.
up here. And I think that we did talk, at one point, that if we actually got the bids that came in for the construction costs, so that we, what was it, help me out here, that we knew more concrete what that number was. And like you said, maybe build in the contingencies, with that, so.
Yeah, the community, we've done it both ways, but the community, is really happy when there's a bid in hand, because they know that's the
Right.
cost.
Right.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But most communities go the other, process, in that they approve a schematic design estimate with contingencies and go forward. We did, the town of Orleans preferred to bring it to town meeting. It was a very successful project, but, it takes a different approach.
So this town meeting, we would be coming, asking for the whole kit and caboodle.
That would be one approach, yeah.
Okay.
Is that your recommendation?
I'm just wondering if we can pull it together by May 1st. I can't,
I think, I look at Spencer only because some of the biggest variables are on the site.
Oh, yeah? So you're talking from now, having plans, like?
Not plans, but we definitely need to get some geotech done. We won't get all full survey done, I can tell you right now. There's no way we'll have survey done, surveys are out 6-8 weeks before we start
Oh,
today.
surveys are out a lot longer than that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
3 months.
wetlands, geotech.
Well, this takes a long time.
What we don't want to do is, we don't want to present something half-baked.
No.
How about if you present something maybe at the next meeting, a schedule? We have 2 town meetings. We'll have the June town meeting, and then we'll have the fall town meeting. So maybe if you need some money for the, to carry into the summer, into early fall, that might work.
Yeah,
A combination.
Yeah.
I thought
Combination,
I
yes.
thought we said we would, because even in the interview process, I said it's gonna be a very difficult stretch to get to
Right.
Springtown meeting.
Yeah.
I thought
I remember, yep.
we were pushing this to this fall town meeting anyhow. I think it would be more prudent that we spent the time, we can discuss, and Rick can certainly, maybe you, approve some additional monies for, go to DD, some additional, even just have it in the bank, if we don't have to spend it necessarily,
Right.
but give you ask for additional design money. We can decide whether you want to spend it all or not, but give you some flexibility, ask for an additional, $300,000. I'm just throwing a number, but not a huge number, just to buy you some more time.
Yeah.
We can get the site locked up. We had and this whole approval with, the habitat and getting a better understanding on, okay, well, there's some X and Y or Z that we can't, and the site all of a sudden doesn't become. I think you're taking more of a risk to try to go for the whole kit and caboodle, asking us to give you a decision in 6 weeks.
Yeah. Right. So if you could come back to us either at the next meeting or a meeting before April 8th, whatever that date is, with a schedule, with a plan, what you'd be looking for.
A realistic
A realistic time, what you would be looking at the June town meeting and the fall town meeting.
So we
Okay.
can,
I can tell you right now, Alex actually put this together today, and I flipped out when I saw it, because
We don't want to see it.
she did, she struggled to try to fit in the boxes just on paper. And my biggest concern is the credibility. When we're presenting to different departments and community, and someone says, did you think about this? You say, well, no, we didn't really have enough time, so we carried a contingency for that. That doesn't sound
Well, your
right.
credibility is important,
Yeah,
obviously, the
exactly.
company's
So-
reputation.
And I know that it slows things down a little bit, Chief.
Yeah, I was gonna throw something.
No, but,
You had 2 town meetings to figure it out.
Right.
good.
Yeah, and I
Very
think
little
that this,
better.
and I think the goal of this committee was, this project to be successful, when we bring it to town meeting, for discussion, that we had our community outreach, that they were educated, they saw what they would be, investing in. And, when I'm sitting here thinking June, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even, in my head, I don't know how,
We had-
we would be able to do that
I think
successfully.
I think the only way we would have sort of, and we did talk about this in December, if you were gonna do the full sets of drawings and then go and try to get a bid, then you would ask for that at the spring. But we had always pretty much, that day, as I said, I knew it was a little tight just back when we interviewed in October, so time flies. So I agree. This way it gives you public outreach. You go back in fall, ask for the full amount of money. We'll have all of the answers
Great.
answered.
We can put
and-
together a great campaign.
And then,
Is
we'll approve some money at this Springtown meeting, a smaller amount. It helps sort of,
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
it the intention of this group to incorporate, some, like, I know the Plymouth project, they use, they use a public relations firm to market their buildings. Is it our intention to follow that model and employ like a, what are they,
we have not used any
was it
formal.
Gulfoy?
What?
Was it Galfoy or Gulf?
Yeah,
Not in Plymouth, we did.
no, I don't think it was Plymouth. Dartmouth used, Guilfoy or, I forget the guy's name. I can find him, I can get his contact.
Where this is coming from is I keep on interacting with the people in the public, people reaching out to me, they want updates, they wanna know what's happening. Why, we haven't heard anything from you in a while about the fire department. And because before we had a committee formed, I was very comfortable speaking to the need of the fire station. But now I'm working under this umbrella and I'm not really the spokesperson for this group. So I've been silent, but people are looking for an update. And if we don't communicate our story, somebody else will, they'll take it over for us.
Good.
So I'm looking for some outreach or some updates to the public, so they
Yeah,
know
we could-
something's going
I
on.
think we have a pretty good idea for you.
Yeah, and we can help you.
I love good ideas.
Yeah, and we can help you, obviously,
Yeah.
hold work sessions and public information sessions. I mean, you own that with us. You don't have to, it's not additional services. We're happy to do it. We go to community outreach all the time. Presentation like today with, not necessarily the decision parts of it. Site selected, this is what the building looks like, this is why we did it. I did one the other night in Gloucester, Rhode Island. There was a bunch of people that were not in favor of the police station. They finished our presentation and several of them came up to me and said, "No, we're in favor of this now. Now we understand why you're doing it," and we answered. Some people you can never, they're gonna be no matter what, and there's that level of whatever. But if people keep an open mind, and I think as the chief said, you don't want everybody else out there starting your narrative. You want to own your own narrative.
Right.
And these people are enthusiastic about the project, they're supporters, but they want updates.
Right.
And they're not used to me being quiet, which is,
So what we can do is this, we can put together a program for you,
Yeah,
and it would be several different tiers. We're actually doing it for the town of Sandwich right now. We'll put together an outreach program for you. You identify, who those groups are that we want to focus on. And we can set up some focus groups with them. But also, what we'd like to recommend is just doing a simple monthly newsletter that you can put on your website, you can send to your constituents, however, one page, just an update. What did we do this month? We had a site selection. We looked at some preliminary drawings, and very simple, easy to read, not complex, not a huge document people have to thumb through, and it can be very, very effective.
yeah, I'm all about that.
Yeah,
And
good.
I can appreciate that as well.
So we'll put something like that together. I'm really happy to have a little bit of time now, because June 6th was scaring the daylights out of me.
Rick, if I can just jump in quick, you'll remember that, Mark, too, the discussion we had in December, was relative to going forward with additional money to go through this design development. We had that conversation. One of the biggest points with that were, we discussed making sure that we were clear with our residents what our intent was. We're going through design development. That means we're really supporting a new fire station. I don't see a delay pushing the full amount off until the fall, because if we go to town meeting with enough money to start working on design development, I mean, the period to go from schematic to design development is pretty substantial, right?
Sure.
But we'll have the funds to keep doing that. We just got to reiterate the fact that if we go to June town meeting and ask for whatever the number is to go to the next step, we make it clear to the residents that, by supporting this, it means you're really supporting a larger number. And, I don't want to throw a number out there. We know where it's going to be generally. I don't mind if there's a, 10 or 15% range there, but let's come up with a number so that at town meeting in June, we can say, you fund $500,000, we're looking at a $25 million fire station. I'm just gonna say it. And so,
I didn't say.
yeah, no, and that's okay. But the most important thing, and Mike knows, I mean, this community's a family. So that we're always honest with our family. Let's say it. Let's go to town meeting. We're going to get support. The residents are supporting this.
And help them understand that whatever we do vote to spend and that town meeting
Exactly.
is going to the overall cost. It's not an additional sum.
Right.
No, but I do. You're framing the narrative again is good at town meeting, that is the intent, to come back with a more realistic number. That's what these baby steps are for, so that when we come back, we have a number that we're all confident in, that we can live with, and,
And the
all
biggest
things
thing
considered.
too is the project's not dying on the vine. So I'm
Correct.
starting to hear a little bit of that grumbling. Hey, we're not moving. Well, there's a lot that's been happening the last couple months.
Oh, yeah,
It's
every
just
month,
that-
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the
Yeah.
amount of work that's gone into this so far, even helping identify the location, natural heritage, zone A's,
Yeah, I mean,
traffic patterns.
Just
all
between, realistically, we didn't get a
It's a lot.
contract till mid-December.
Exactly.
Because we were talking in December, I didn't have a contract at that point. Then the holidays came, we jumped right into it, we did programming right away, we've done some design meetings, there's more development that needs to happen, but.
The great part about this, it's not from a position of suspicion or anything else. They're just enthusiastic about the project. So it's a good problem to have, and they're looking for updates, and I just don't feel comfortable speaking for this group. Like, it has to be a team release.
I love it. This is a hybrid model right now, and we're gonna invest a little bit more money to get more detail and have better numbers to present, rather than.
Are you happy, Rick?
I'm very.
Oh, is you happy?
It's all about me right now.
It's always about you, Rick.
All right, so we'll meet up again next week, and I'll go connect with you just to see if there's anything else we should put on that agenda, for discussion, if it's, scheduling a next meeting with the main body or whatever, next steps, so.
We could, Rick and I and Alex can get a number to you, the first week in April. As I said, I'm gonna be away for a couple of weeks, and you could start putting some numbers together, but
Yeah.
just for what you might wanna ask for.
I want to get everything lined up too. Survey, geotech, get all of that we have a consultant, the LSP that represents the town with regards to national heritage. Let's get all that lined up and keep moving forward, so this is good.
So,
Excellent.
I mean, easily by May, we can give you all those numbers.
Good. Perfect.
And then it's a more fixed, focused ask based on moving the project to the next step. Makes sense. I like that. I'm happy.
Okay.
We knew it wasn't really all about Rick.
Any new
We let him
business?
think it.
No?
It feels good if he thinks it.
All right, 8:39, I'll call this, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Tom,
Appreciate it.
created that campaign.